Okay, I think we're just about ready to go. I'm gonna ask Ben to kick us off here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It is great to have everyone here today, and welcome to our Navigating Tariffs webinar. So, as Rick said, my name is Ben. I'm co-CEO of Katana, and Riikka, our COO, and I will be walking us through some of the tariff impacts and how we can help people to understand what those potential impacts are, and of course, what you can do about them. So, we'll get straight into it. And the plan for today is for me just to walk through a little bit of background on how we get our data, so how we can understand some of the things that are going on. Riikka's going to walk us through some of that, and then I'll come back and talk about some recommendations. So first off, we actually have about 1,500 customers worldwide, all SMBs who sell physical products. And those customers, of course, use Katana to manage their inventory. And this gives us a really unique view into how product businesses are managing and dealing with changes, not just tariffs, of course, because a tariff is a form of cost increase. And of course, we've been dealing with inflation and other cost pressures for quite a long time now. So we've got a really good set of data and view, and that's what we're going to walk you through. And our customers are all over the world. We have most in North America, but we are global across lots of different industries. And this gives us, again, this really good set of data that we can look at. One of the things we find with our customers is they've actually been really successful with managing their inventory. And the way they have done this is through obviously using some of the Katana capability to achieve things like 15% increase in sales orders, decreasing their inventory levels. We actually have lots of customers who've been able to really reduce the stocked inventory. So matching up demand and supply, which is what I'll talk about a bit later, is something that's really important to be efficient and effective with your costs and therefore your profit margins. And so we give people these capabilities in the platform in a really easy to use, user-friendly way so that they can manage their businesses, manage production, manage the warehouses, and make sure that they've got the best possible outcomes for their business. And so who are our customers? As I mentioned, we've got about 1,500 customers around the world, and they process around $2.5 billion worth of GMV or revenue through the Katana platform. Wide range of different size customers. Lots of them are integrated to other platforms, something like a Shopify or QuickBooks, for example. And as I said, across all types of different industries, food, beverage, manufacturing, e-commerce, lots of different things. And the one thing that kind of is, I guess, constant with all of the customers is that they're growing and they actually grow faster than the average for the SMB market. And so we're really proud of that. And one of the things we do is help our customers and guide them through those things. And so this is something we're going to talk about. So I'm going to hand over to Riikka. She's going to walk through some of the data, some of the challenges, some of the things we're seeing, and then we'll talk a bit about what you can do about them. So Riikka, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you everyone who joined us today. We are going to be sharing our platform data, but also polling you on how tariffs are impacting your business. So you can already see the first poll results. There. Obviously, we have a crowd whose business is impacted by the already in place tariffs as well as potential upcoming tariffs. Before I get into it, a disclaimer. We won't be talking about more of the macro situation in terms of, we understand that price and fuel costs, labor costs, currency impacts obviously impact our customers as well. However, today we will be focusing on what we see specifically in your inventory and how you manage that. So we'll be focusing on the physical products and the impact of tariffs on that. So what we will cover today is the impact that tariffs have already had on companies, where we stand as we start the new year, what kind of preparations we saw customers do, and what kind of inventory levels we're now looking at in different industries, in different sectors. how the raw material prices and the component prices have been developing already, and how those are now spilling into 2025 and this new operating environment, and how that is affecting purchasing. But also what the sales prices look like, what the demand side of things looks like, and obviously what kind of profits and profit margins different industries and different verticals have been able to maintain or increase or decrease. And we will end with some successful strategies, how to navigate the situation, some based on what we see in our data, some based on our experience with those 1,500 SMBs, working with them around the world, which has taught us a trick or two. So with that, let's start with the big picture, where we stand today. SMBs were definitely navigating a very challenging environment already in 2024. I don't need to tell you that costs were rising. Luckily, in the beginning part of the year, also the sales prices and the sales volumes were rising. Demand was there to offset those costs, and manufacturers were fairly good at moving the rising costs also to their inventory and to their customers. However, that picture changes in Q4. The cost side keeps on rising. However, the pricing power is not quite there anymore, especially during the peak holiday season, if you're in the consumer side of things. So the holiday season, as well as then, of course, the following discounts, are putting a lot of price pressure in general across all industries, of course, making the operating environment very challenging already in Q4 last year. There is another story behind this picture, though. There's another reason why the inventory levels have really been rising in Q4, and that is that certain industries have definitely been stocking up already during Q4. So inventory value and inventory levels have been pushed very dramatically up in certain industries in preparation for upcoming tariffs in Q1. So with that backdrop of what the overall situation looks like across different industries, let's take a deep dive into specific industries, and especially the ones that we see that are impacted the most by this new operating environment that we are in. I did mention already about stock levels. Obviously, purchasing is and what you have in inventory and what you stock in your inventory is a huge part of our customers' business. And I think you can see the poll results also on the screen there. You can see that all of our customers in this webinar are ranking material and component purchasing as their #1 area of concern. That is the area that is currently impacted the most by tariffs. The industry, at least a little bit surprising to myself, that is most impacted is cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. It has a very dramatic rising cost, especially towards the end of the year. Inventory, the cost of the acquired inventory and especially raw materials has risen dramatically, 103% Q4 over Q3. And perhaps as a result, stock levels on this particular industry are actually unseasonably low. Usually Q4 is a season where stock levels rise in preparation for the spring season. So it is an unseasonably low stock level that we see on this particular industry. If we go from the consumer side to more B2B products, wood products, timber, but also steel, and we should probably now add aluminum to this list. Another area that has seen dramatically rising costs already in Q4. So even in these areas where we now know that tariffs will be impacting purchasing costs in Q1, we actually already saw massive cost increases in Q4. However, these are also like industries buying these raw materials are also much more capable in transferring those costs to their customer prices, or at least they have been so far. And therefore, probably they have also been able to stock up inventory. So this is definitely an area where we have seen a lot of stocking happening in Q4 already in preparation for what's to come in 2025. In some instances, the levels of inventory for these types of customers are actually quadruple that of normal. So it is a massive increase in their inventory levels and definitely beyond anything that we've seen before. Then back to the consumer side again, fashion, accessories, a huge industry, of course, especially for e-commerce, a much steadier increase in costs and cost of goods sold that actually went throughout 2024 rather than cosmetics or wood, timber, steel. That's more a spike at the end of the year. Fashion costs keep rising throughout the year. However, and this is obviously a challenge, it was coupled with a steady decline in average order value. So it is going to be a challenging combination to start to balance those rising costs, even if you are able to increase prices, but are not able to increase the average order value that your customers are ordering from you. We do also see elevated stock levels in fashion and accessories, but nothing too out of the ordinary. So probably this industry is still more cautious in terms of what the impact of tariffs will be and was not able to kind of pre-purchase as much as some other industries. That is definitely true for food and beverage. Obviously, you can't stock up on perishables. It is very difficult to prepare safety stock, so we have actually seen steadily declining levels throughout the year. Obviously understandable, as we know how much prices have been increasing, and it is becoming more and more crucial that there is no overstock that you're then stuck with. One interesting aspect, which isn't actually just food and beverage related, although this industry is probably impacted more than some others, is that we're seeing much more stockouts in packaging materials than we normally do. Throughout Q3 and Q4 of 2024, packaging materials have become hard to get. There are supply chain issues. There is a lot of volatility in price. And now in 2025, we're going to add to that tariffs on China, because if you operate in the US, regardless of where you buy your packaging materials, there's a very good chance that the origin of it is China. So it will actually cost you more and might be harder to get, whether we're talking about plastic or paper, boxes, whatever packaging materials. Now's a good time to make sure that you don't overlook that part of your inventory as you plan ahead. Let's look at sales prices and profits per industry as well, because what we are seeing now is that focus on profit margins. It is more important than ever. You can imagine with these rising cost of goods, but the ability to actually push those costs into prices being in pressure, that obviously presents risks to every industry, more so perhaps for those with very fast turnover and inventory turnover rates, but industries across the board also if you have been stocking up a lot in advance. Sales prices are actually an interesting one to follow throughout 2024 because there is a lot more fluctuation than typically. However, the unfortunate fact is that most industries are not able to price as aggressively as the costs have been rising. There is one exception to this rule, and that is electronics and computers and appliances. This is actually the only industry that we see in all of our 2.5 billion of sales order volume that goes through our platform every year that has been able to not just fully transfer the risen cost of goods to their sales prices, but also increase their profit margins in 2024. Every other industry has seen declining profit margins last year. So that is obviously a very challenging start to 2025, unless you're so lucky that you are working in the electronics, computers, appliances industry. However, that industry is also a big buyer of steel and aluminum. So again, if you're in the US, those tariffs are probably now going to hit you. So those already risen prices are going to be in pressure of you might have to price them again. And if you're not in the US, now might be your chance to compete with price, because you might actually have an edge over those US manufacturers for a little while at least. If we look at fashion and accessories again, like I said, only a part of the risen cost of goods was actually transferred to the sales prices in this industry, but there's an interesting exception here. Footwear has definitely been able to also increase their prices throughout the year, and we haven't seen as much seasonality as we usually do. People need shoes, regardless of what the operating environment is. There's also another interesting aspect of the or subsection of the fashion and accessories subset, which is sporting goods and sportswear. They actually decreased prices in Q4, something that we never see in Q4, because the discount pressure usually starts from the end of the holiday season. But what we definitely saw here was also now a stocking of spring inventory that happened about 2 months earlier than usual. So we're really hoping that these sportswear manufacturers and purchasers have bought the right inventory and are also able to then sell that as the spring moves on. I should say, by the way, that if we are touching your industry but not going into the specifics, you can always reach out to your customer success manager or reach out to our sales team. They will be able to share some of those kind of more detailed insights of any specific industry as well. Food and beverage, again, a huge industry, of course, and I'm Mr. Obvious here when I tell that sales prices of food have increased. We know that. The unfortunate fact, however, is that food and beverage has not been able to move those costs that have risen fully to their sales prices. Their profit margins have been getting smaller and smaller, and we all know that we start from a very low base already. So this is an industry where it is more crucial than ever to make sure you know you are not selling at a loss. Because if you are selling at a loss, if you're constantly selling with that diminished profit margin, you're obviously going to experience cash flow pressure that will then eventually not just hurt your business, but put you out of business. So making sure that you do maintain profit margins, whatever your tactic of doing it is. It might not be price increases, it might be efficiency increases in your process, but maintaining those profit margins is absolutely key for survival right now. So we do hope you put a lot of attention to that. Obviously, Katana is here to help. Finally, machinery, vehicles, parts, an industry that if you are in North America, I bet you've heard a lot of talk about in media. We've seen a massive increase in stock levels of this industry. This is the industry that has a quadrupled inventory level right now. Or put it another way, the industry has actually purchased their entire inventory of 2025 already in Q4 of last year. Like, that's how massive the kind of preparing for tariffs has been for this particular industry, which is of course good news because they won't need to now find suppliers or purchase at higher prices. It becomes trickier if demand doesn't hold. So obviously their ability to now also dispose of that inventory is going to be key in 2025. So it will be a very interesting year for this industry as well, but they are starting off at a fairly good position and have been preparing in a way that should make them competitive this year as well. I think with that, why don't we move on to how can you navigate these pressures better? I'm going to hand it over back to Ben.
Thank you, Riikka. So I'm going to take a few minutes here. I'm actually going to walk through a few of the items that you see in front of you in a little bit more detail. Obviously, the goal here is to protect profit margin. As Riikka said, there are some areas where we're actually seeing those margins decrease, potentially for some companies into a loss or close to loss scenario. And of course, we want to avoid that. So I think the first thing to say is, as you probably heard, regardless of if or when tariffs come into play, just the fact that the conversation is happening has had an impact already. And so we would encourage any business to actually take the time before something comes in to actually assess what the impact is going to be. And you do that, of course, across your products and your suppliers. So you might be able to switch products, and I saw in the survey a few people kind of looking at that option. It might be that you want to change suppliers as well. A couple of things to note: that the product you're buying isn't always obviously subject to tariffs, because it could be a downstream product. For example, if you're a beverage manufacturer and you have your product in cans, know that the price of the cans that you're buying for people is going to be going up, because of course the steel and aluminum tariffs are going to have an impact there. So again, assess the materials, assess the suppliers, and for example, if you are using Katana, or if you're not, but if in Katana you are, then we have a full supplier list that shows all of the suppliers and the costs and all the things purchased, and you can use that then, and you can use that to estimate the financial impact on your margins with cost increases and with changes. And of course, that's what you have to analyze, right? Because you want to be calculating that direct impact of the tariffs, not only just on your procurement costs, but of course your landed cost, and therefore the overall margin. When you do that, you can of course determine, is that a cost that you can absorb? Are you willing to take a margin cut? Perhaps you might want to scale down on customer demand. So really have fewer orders coming in. Maybe you're putting your prices up. There are a number of things, and again, we saw those in the survey. But the key thing here is assessing which ones based on the right kind of data and information. And for example, when you look at pricing, you might want to actually have different prices for different customers or for different channels. So again, Katana, our users are using the different price list capability to actually put together different pricing lists for different either customers or industries, and they might choose to allocate the increased costs in different ways to those different areas, and therefore give kind of different pass-through rates to different parts of the business. That can allow them to stay competitive in an area that perhaps has an ultra-thin margin, and they can maybe take a bit off of the margin for an area where they have more room to do so. And then, of course, when you're doing this planning, you want to make sure that you are looking ahead and you're communicating. Right? There's, of course, potentially impacts to your customers. There's potentially impacts to your team. And communicating that with all of the stakeholders, finance, operations, customers, is obviously something you have to do. But if we take finance as an example, I'm not sure, you may have in-house finance and accounting, you may have outsourced it. But one of the things you can also do is look at how you treat the finances. And this is where we get into the optimization side of things. As an example, you can actually implement something like a moving average cost methodology. And if you adapt that, what you're effectively doing is taking the cost of the increased item and you're averaging it across the items you already purchased. So you can bring down the overall average of the cost versus just taking a big hit up front. That way, your tariff-free stock is kind of taking some of the burdens, some being utilized in some of the increase. Your newer inventory is kind of gradually factored into the expense calculation. So you're spreading out the impact over time by using a different accounting treatment. Now, I should say the MAC methodology is not hugely complicated, but it was too complicated to go through in this call in detail. So what we will do at the end of the call is we will send out a whole bunch of resources to people. Lots of the information we're sharing today in terms of the how-to that I'm going through is on our website. And there's a whole section on, for example, the MAC methodology as well. The other thing you also need to do is actually go in and take a look at the cost of your materials in the inventory management system and make sure that you are looking ahead to the tariff adjusted price. And that step allows you to simulate what your profit margins would be before you place the new orders so that you can decide, should I be switching vendor? Should I switch supplier? Might I need to adjust demand or pricing to ensure that you're getting that accurate financial forecasting? And like I mentioned earlier, you can utilize different pricing strategies like dynamic tools to ensure that customers are getting the right up-to-date price at the right time, and different pricing groups for different types of customers, as I mentioned. The other thing you can do is actually look at how you might expand your go-to-market in your business. Let's say you're what we would call a branded manufacturer. You make your own product that you perhaps sell to retail stores. Well, maybe now's the time to consider something like direct to consumer. Could you have an online channel that allows you to get greater demand for your product? So while your overall margin might come down, because your overall revenue goes up, you're still getting to the same kind of end number in terms of your net on the revenue side. We've got lots of customers who use lots of different channels, right? We've got some people who use distribution, wholesale, online, in-store, lots of different models that you can use. And in fact, lots of our customers use some combination of them all. And some people would refer to that as omni-channel, some as multi-channel. Again, on our website, we actually give kind of that definition and what they really mean. But the key is having a central place where all your inventory is located in real time. Because of course, what you don't want to have happen is commit to selling something online that you don't actually have in stock because you just sold it in a store. And that's where a single source of truth for your inventory, whether it's raw materials or finished good, that's why that is so important, because that allows you to minimize the understocking or the overstocking. Overstock, of course, is bad. You've spent too much. That will erode your margin. Understock, of course, is bad because you're leaving money on the table. What we want to do is help get that demand and supply as close to each other as possible to be as efficient and effective in driving that revenue. Finally, you're monitoring your inventory levels in real time, assessing, how much stock you have, and you want to be looking ahead. And that's what we're going to talk about on this slide, is the planning and forecasting, and the things that we're doing to help our customers and what we see successful companies doing. We actually recently launched our own tariff management solution. And again, you can find information on our website. We'll send some information out. But what we have is an actual guide on how to do some of these things, how to track and manage the supplier data, and how you can use a tool like Katana to do that. How you can do some scenario planning. We even have a planning and forecasting tool that allows people to put the data in and then see what different scenarios might look like based on different demand levels. You can then forecast the inventory you need. You can apply those increased costs in the tool, and that will tell you what your profit margin calculation might be. You can then choose, should I be using, first in, last out, moving cost average? There's a whole bunch of different ways you can treat that. And of course, that's something to work with your accountant on. But you can then sort to apply those different types of margin calculations and approaches to see what makes the most sense for your business and how things are going to evolve. Of course, the big thing right now is uncertainty and change. And so it is hard to know exactly what's going to happen in the future. It's less stable. So having something that can change quickly, being ready to adapt and having different optionality is something that we always recommend for people so that you can react and take advantage of opportunities, but also protect yourself from the downside. With that said, like I said, we do have lots of resources available to people. And so as an example, as I said, we have the Katana Tariff Hub on our website. We actually have some tutorials as well on tariff management, some impact analysis. We have a bunch of guides, knowledge base. we've got videos, we've got our YouTube site that has whole things in there. Some of these things are unique for Katana customers, but the majority of it is not. So whether you're a customer or not, we want to make sure that we're helping SMBs and helping the industry through what is a challenging time for many people. We, of course, have this webinar, and we have a few more that will be coming up as well. So encourage you to stay in touch. And if there's a specific question you have, as Riikka said earlier, you can always contact our support or our sales team. Reach out to us. We're happy to help. Again, whether you're a customer or not, we really want to help make sure that you're getting the best from your inventory, maintaining the margins, and of course, succeeding in 2025. So with that said, our goal, our vision as Katana is to help entrepreneurs and small businesses grow. I mentioned at the beginning that our customers grow more than on average, and that's what we're here for. We want to help you produce and sell more so that you can grow. Riikka, I think that concludes our content for the day. If there is anything you would like to add, please do so before we wrap things up.
Just a huge thank you for everyone who joined, especially our Katana customers. Please do contact your customer success manager to have a conversation about how we can help you even better grow in 2025. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.